Broadcasting from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, to around the globe. You're listening to Shark Bite Biz, your exclusive place for business strategy, sales, marketing, and tech in the roaring 20s. And now, here's your host, David Strausser.
Hey, I'm your rock star host, David Strausser. Welcome to the newest episode of Shark Bite Biz, your place to grow a business during complete chaos. We got another great episode slated for today. First, though, remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can join the channel. You can become a member of our community here on YouTube. Smash that join button for as little as $3 a month. That's $3 a month. You can become a baby shark and you help this channel grow. You help cover some of the costs. And that would be so amazing if you felt that we've earned your membership like that. But if donating money through YouTube isn't your thing, I got a better way for you to do it. And that's going to our coffee brand, deadhousecoffee.com. Use code SHARK. You get 20% off, and all the proceeds directly support us producing the biggest and best show that we possibly can. So let's get back to today's episode. We're going to chat about purpose. More specifically, doing good at work. You may have had a job that you used to be thrilled about, and now all of a sudden it just doesn't make you feel as good as it used to. You may feel like your talent, your ability, it's just wasting away, and it's time for that to stop. For me, doing this podcast since my day job, Vision 33, so graciously allows me to do this show, it really gives me a sense of purpose. I'm building a community. It's helping people change their personal, their professional lives, as well as helping them break through all those bottlenecks that are preventing growth for their business. So I view it that, yes, I'm doing good at work, and you should be too. So who is today's guest? None other than Bea Boccalandro. Bea is the author of Do Good at Work, How Simple Acts of Social Purpose Drive Success and Well-Being, which was selected by three-time New York Times best-selling author Adam Grant as a top 30 new book. She is also president of VeraWorks, a global consulting firm specializing in workplace purpose. She's helped dozens of large and small businesses, including IBM, Disney, FedEx, PwC, Toyota, and QVC, ignite their purpose in the workspace. So, hey, without further delay, let's get Bea on it here.
Personal growth.
Bea, welcome to Shark Bite Biz. You, my friend, you just became Shark Bait.
I am so happy to be bait.
That's good. You would not believe how many people actually say that. And it's like, wow, that's cool. But anyways, thank you so much for coming on here. And we have a tradition on this show. Very first question, it's always the same thing. Okay, it's a loaded question, so watch out. What's your experience? What's your background? How did you get where you are? What do you do? Basically, tell everybody out there watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify or iTunes, what makes Bea Bea?
That is a loaded question.
I know. That's why I tell everybody, we started off with an easy question. It's a softball. And then they're like, oh my God, where do I start?
Yeah. I feel like at my core, I'm a privileged global citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's been a while since I've heard the word global citizen.
Yeah. So, when I graduated from high school, I had gone to 9 different schools.
Wow.
I wasn't kicked out of any of them. My sister was, but I wasn't.
That's good. But 9 different schools.
9 different schools. So 9 different times I was, walking to school or being driven to school, going like, I don't know anybody in my class. 9 before I graduated from high school.
Yeah.
And then I went to college in, not the place I grew up. So I feel like even though I was born in Venezuela, I'm to Venezuelan parents, and but we moved around a lot, and we lived in the U.S. for part of that time when I was growing up. So I never felt like this nation state designation of where you're from. It just never worked for me. Certainly city didn't work. And the reason I went to 9 different schools is because we moved around a lot. So I felt like I was part of the globe, but not part of, one nation state.
I feel that way too. And the reason is because people are like, David, it's easy. You're a white guy from rural coal country, Pennsylvania. You're from Pottsville, Pennsylvania. I'm like, no, it's not that easy. I moved to Tijuana, Mexico when I was like literally 18. I think it was 2 months after September 11th. Okay. And I lived out there primarily from the age of 18. Now, we did live in San Diego for a couple years, but the ironic thing is I was actually crossing into Mexico to work every day for work. So, I was still down there for more than half of each week. I have a Mexican green card. I did live in Peru for a while and have had some extended stays down there because my wife is Peruvian. And it's kind of like, at this point in my life, I spent more time living in Mexico and having that an impact on my life from the early adult age of learning of how the world works compared to going through just elementary school, learning how to read and write in Pennsylvania. Like
Yeah.
it's weird. Like technically, yeah, I am from Pennsylvania, but I don't really feel that way because I felt that living in Mexico had a way bigger impact on my life. And it does give me a level of confliction. Is that kind of what you're talking about there? Is that kind of level?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you use the word conflictual because for a lot of my life, I felt like the different parts of me were in conflict. And, we have both moved around so much that we have Pennsylvania in common. So I lived in Pennsylvania.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, what are the chances of that, but it's because
we both ended up here.
Yeah.
How crazy of a world.
Yeah.
Like maybe an hour to 2 hours apart.
Yeah. Well, I'm not there any longer to kind of prove my point. I'm in Southern California now.
And I just moved from Southern California, so we're good.
See?
Yeah.
Hopefully I didn't chase you out. But no, it's funny that you use that word conflictual because I used to feel the conflict. So I used to just, be around, people in Venezuela, and they would, say something that I didn't resonate for me. I was just like, well, it just seemed narrow or something. The
mindset.
The mindset or the positions. Like the positions are established. If you're Venezuelan, then Colombians are trying to steal this strip of land, and I'm be like,
that's not like
wait a second, what's the backstory? And then I'm like, oh my God, I think the Colombians are right. Like I think this belongs to them, So
that sounds like my wife talking about Chilenos, people from Chile, and oh my God, even with the alcohol, pisco, and I have to hear about the Chileans all the time. So I can definitely relate to those South American, inter-regional struggles with that stuff.
Yeah. And so I guess it's like, I just didn't feel, but I was going to say for a long time, I felt the conflict. And then at some point I felt the complexity, but no longer the conflict. So this is hope for you because I'm older than you. So no, this is hope for you because I feel like there's a complexity and there's more nuances
Hmm.
if you relate to all these different places. Sometimes it have dramatically conflictual point of views, but you, you don't have to internalize that conflict. It
Right.
could just be kind of like a complex, beautiful, like kaleidoscope type thing,
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than, oh, these two things don't go together. So I don't
Right.
feel the conflict any longer. I just
You
kind of
figured out a way to make it work, and I
yeah.
definitely agree because, like you were saying about that um, Venezuela and those feelings. And I really felt that way a lot growing up in Pottsville. I think I've said this story on the podcast before, but people, grandfather to other people, I'd be telling them like ideas, dreams, and they're like, boy, get your head out of the clouds. You ain't doing that. And it's like, what are you talking about? I mean, like, this is, I don't know. It was just like, yeah, my first chance to get out of there, I did. But then when I moved to Tijuana, I was actually living most of my life. Now, yeah, in Baja, it's a totally different culture than if you went to some place like Mexico City, Oaxaca, or Guadalajara, or any of the other great locations down there in Mexico. Baja is kind of more of a hybrid, kind of like how San Diego is, just really chill and laid back, I'd say. But when I moved down there, I ended up in Tijuana. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the city structures down there, but
Mm.
they do things in colonias, which is
Oh,
basically
sure.
like
The
neighborhoods.
plaza.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
colonias would be
Um,
colonies in English, and it's kind of like little neighborhoods. And the one that I ended up moving into, because I was a poor 18-year-old American living in Mexico, crossing the border every single day to work in San Diego, was a very underdeveloped neighborhood. Like, it was
mm,
very ghetto. And I actually think that led to some of my success living down there, because living in that environment, they had a lot of the mentality, like you were saying about Venezuela, where you were at, or where I'm from in Pennsylvania. A lot of that type of mentality and thinking was in this smaller um, portion of Tijuana where I was living, and I think it kind of also gave me that like home feeling, because these people thought and felt kind of like they did at home, but yet once I walked outside of that little colonia where I ended up eating and sleeping every night, like to go out and about, or to go work or whatever it may be, that's where it was like I was in a totally different world, around more people that maybe they didn't believe everything I did, but they had more open mindsets like I did
yeah.
around a lot of things. And I don't know, it kind of gave me that balance.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're open to it, I mean, I love what you just said, because it's like home can be anywhere, right?
Yep.
It's like where there's support. There doesn't have to be like an understanding, or you don't even really have to fully understand someone
Hmm.
to give them a space where they feel at home. You just need to, be supportive and, treat them with dignity. And like, that's what they were doing
Hmm.
for you, right?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, they
definitely.
probably couldn't understand half the things in your past or what you were talking about, but they
They
made
thought
you
it
feel
was
at
funny that
home.
I couldn't speak Spanish at the time, and when I did, it was very bad Spanish. They loved to make fun of me. They thought it was cool to make fun of me in front of my face, but then eventually I learned, and I was able to give it back to them. And then, they're like, "Ooh, okay,
Yeah.
okay."
Yeah.
You had to kind of fight for everything you have, fight for earning the respect of the people that was living with. And it was a unique experience. It really formulated me into who I am. So I'm glad that you said that, because I think that's something that I can definitely relate to. And I think a lot of people don't have that experience, maybe like what we would call military brats that have moved around, stuff like that. But
Sure.
I don't think a lot of other people really had that experience to that degree, especially when you're talking multi countries and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it is something unique. And I think even as a country, one of the things that you brought up was nuance. I think people have forgotten how nuanced lives are, whether it's a political point of view or whether it's business. Too many people, I think, are just getting so black and white now, and they're not looking at things at a deeper level to really understand the nuances and understand why are things actually like that and see the whole picture. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. It just means that you can actually understand at least that point of view, why this business operates like this or this does that. And I think that's something that is important to create the awareness around that. There are that we're forgetting the nuances of life that does exist and how to live and work within those nuances and not just be like black and white, right and wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah,
I
yeah. There we
agree.
go. Woo! But
Yeah.
so let's jump into. I'm sure everybody on YouTube has noticed. I have this awesome book here that came with a beautiful note as well as a awesome signature. Everybody knows I love collecting all the books from the speakers that come here onto the show. And I really just love the title of it because of the fact that it's do good at work. And subheader is how simple acts of social purpose drive success and well-being. So we'll get into how you can get the book and stuff like that later. But right now, I mean, why did you write the Do Good at Work? Who is this book meant for? What's the purpose of this book?
So, like when I was in my early 30s, I had
Last
this
year.
last year. Yes. Thank you. I really
See?
appreciate that.
Yeah,
You're
no
my
problem.
favorite podcast host. Yeah, just
Thank you.
yeah. So I had I had a job that I liked. It was doing data analysis. I was recently out of grad school, and I'm a nerd. I love doing data analysis. You give me a
That's great.
database to like play with, and I liked it for a while, and then I stopped liking it, and I couldn't figure out why. My husband at the time was just noticing how I was like less and less inspired by my job, and
Mhm.
he said, quit. And I was like, quit? Are you out of your mind? Like, this is the job I like tried so hard to get after grad school because it was doing the type of data analysis that I really love doing. And but yet 3 weeks later, I quit that job. And
Yeah.
what his explanation was, you are too wonderful for lame work. And that I I
Did it
that
resonate with you?
experience, it didn't at first, which is why like this is crazy. And I mean, I had every reason, like it's ridiculous to quit. Like I'm
Mhm.
getting paid well. I have a great supervisor. My coworkers are pretty great. They only make me pull out my hair out, occasionally,
Every other day.
every other day instead of every hour.
Yeah.
So, but that pivot made me think, wait a second, maybe work should draw you in and should feel meaningful. And I fortunately had an example of a father who embodied that,
Mhm.
and so, kind of fast forward to where I am now. And what I've done in between that time when my ex-husband said, you should quit, and I eventually did, a few weeks later, to now, that journey, what I learned in retrospect is that the reason that job stopped working for me was because even though I was doing my passion, that is what I love to do, which was this data stuff, it didn't have social purpose.
Right.
So I couldn't say at the end of the week that like anything was brighter or better or happier, or that, there was a child smiling more. Like I couldn't point to any meaningful difference that I was making. And
you should see how many kids smile just because of this podcast.
Well,
kids love this show. Well, my kids do, at least. My 3-year-old watches it all the time.
Yeah, that's social purpose right there. Yeah. And so what this book is for anybody who found themselves where I was then, which was like kind of with my head in my hands going like, what went wrong? Like, why isn't my job pulling me in any longer? And we know that for the vast majority of workers, the key reason, the number one reason, is because it doesn't have social purpose. And that means that it doesn't make a contribution to others or to the world. Like you don't feel like it makes a meaningful difference. And so this book is for, it's like, if that's you right now, you don't have to quit your job. I quit my job, but you actually don't have to. You can stay at that job that you chose for some reason, like either it pays well or it's convenient or you're doing what you love. You're designing dresses or whatever it is. You can keep that job, but you can do things within that job to sit down on Friday and go like, oh, I am proud of what I did this week. So that's what this book hopefully does for people.
It gives them the warm and fuzzies, in other words.
Well, the book gives you, it gives you like what you need to do to have the warm and fuzzies at work. Yeah. And it's, it's designed to be relatively short. It was a lot longer before I made it shorter. And then it's designed to be easy to read. So, I was completely thrilled that Adam Grant, the 4-time best-selling author, what he said about the book, which is right on the cover, he said it's actionable and fun to read, because that's what I was trying to do, is like, because everybody deserves a job with meaning, whether you're really into reading or not. So if you're not into reading, I want to make this book accessible so that you can have meaningful work.
Right. So that it can be an easy read. I think so many books, like, they've got good content, and this translates to podcasts too. So I was listening to a lot of podcasts before I launched a show, and a lot of them, especially in the sales business, all that stuff, really, really good info. But I mean, they were kind of boring. They didn't have the personality flares or whatever. And that's where I was like, hey, I'm going to change mine up. I mean, you've heard the intro to how this show is. It's my buddy's band guitar riff with this, the action movie guy who does the promos on TV. And I got a deep network of people. So, I pulled them together. Hey, hook me up, do me a favor. They all do this stuff. And, it's about having fun, doing good, but at the same time, you've got to do it so that whether it's a podcast, whether it's a book, that it is enjoyable, it's easy to read. A great example of a book is, I have an intern on this show, Tyler Isley. There you go. I gave you your shout out. And I just gave him a book because he does not have prior sales experience, but, he really wants to learn from me. He sees everything that I'm doing, and he's like, David, help me get to the next level. Take me under your wing. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So I told him, like, you've got to read this book. It's a really easy read. It's a really light read. And I gave him Jeffrey Gitomer's Little Red Book of Selling. And he started reading it, and I had no idea if he would actually read it or not. But his response was, "Wow, like this book is it's about boring stuff, big sales, business, stuff like that. But it's a light read, meaning that it's easy to read and it's fun and it puts it in an easily digestible format." I think
Yeah.
that's critical to have success with whatever product you're doing. And from what you're saying, it sounds that's exactly what you ended up doing with your book right here.
Yeah, no, I tried to, and it looks like the readers so far agree. So including Adam Grant.
Yeah, Adam
But
Grant does
that's one of
agree.
the
It says it's so on the book.
yeah, it says
Yeah.
so in the book. Yeah, but no, and that's one of the reasons I'm on this podcast, frankly, David, because
Right.
I listened to it, and it's like you you do have that gift of presenting the information and pulling the information out of your guest so that it's digestible. And I am very attuned to that because it took
Thank
me
you.
5 years to read this. I mean,
Wow.
not to read this, to write
Write
this,
this. Yeah.
because I mean, the content wasn't that hard. I mean, I have over 100 examples of people doing this, and those came from my day job because I help
Mhm.
companies with their social purpose. But what was hard was to just package it in the way where it felt like a novel. And
Right.
it is stories of people, and then there's tons of stories of people, so you have to go back to them. And I actually even for fun, it even has drawings. So
Mhm.
I draw for fun, and I was like, well, if I'm gonna quote people, why not do a drawing as
Right.
well? So that just kind of adds to the
Yeah,
fun. But I'm with you. Fun is
that's
important.
yeah, no, that's great too. And that's definitely an ability that I don't have. I cannot
You can
draw. I
play
mean, me
guitar though.
drawing.
You
What's
play
that?
guitar? You
Oh,
play guitar?
I play guitar. So
Yeah.
I am
I
a
can't do
creative.
that.
I'm a creative entrepreneur, but I am not able to draw. I think one of the biggest struggles that I've had was I get the amazing artistic ideas in my brain. I am the best artist you'll probably ever find. You could put me right up there, Van Gogh. Okay. But if you ask me to sketch that out, okay, I mean, I'm competing with 3 year olds. It's that bad. And, one of my personal biggest struggles was how do I transform that? I understand that I'm not an artist. I'm not able. I probably could if I practiced, but I don't have the time. And there's people that specialize in that. So it's like, okay, but how do I get that vision out of my head, translated in a form that a true artist then can do it? A good example of that would be like with the Shark Bite Biz logo that I had in my head, and I'm like, this is how it should be. And when it gets done, it's like, okay, well, it looked better in my head. So let's tweak this, let's tweak that. But ultimately, I mean, I've had to work in being able to get that creative stuff out of my head, bottom line, in a way that I can enable other people to create it for me at that high level.
Yeah, but isn't that the struggle of every creative person, right? Like
Yeah,
the vision is there, and then how to, like, for me, I had
that's a good
this
point.
idea of what I wanted it to feel like to read the book. Like I wanted people to literally like have their pulse go up, to be inspired, and like have to put the book down and go, wait, I got to go do this right now.
Yeah.
And then of course want to come back to it. And I knew what it would take for that. Like I had the vision, but then you have to turn it into something that is black ink on a white piece of paper.
Yeah.
With 26 characters, right? Like that
Mhm.
is like when it comes, the mind is so expansive that like having that vision there is kind of the easy part in a sense. but then bringing it to reality, which is like, two
I think
colors. Yeah,
I think
that's the hard.
though I think though with you, one difference I would say is that, like, okay, for example, with the podcast interviews, okay, I have my vision. I'm able to execute myself, okay, as far as, yes, it depends on the guest, but I've developed more as a host that even if I get a tough guest for an interview, I now have the skills to be able to still drive it and pull info out of people and turn it into a successful interview. Not so much in some of the earlier episodes, but I was still learning. So I view when you're creating something yourself, like for example, with your book, your vision, you have a little bit more control of that. Whereas if I'm trying to design an image of something and I have to rely on someone else to interpret
Yeah,
what I'm trying to give to them, I think that's a little bit harder to master when you
yeah,
don't have that full control and you
yeah.
have to rely on somebody else.
I agree. I agree. Which is, why I write every single syllable. Like
Yeah.
I can understand why people use ghostwriters because,
Mhm.
but I think that that's a different process. It's just like you have the concepts and you want,
I think it depends on
yeah,
the type of ghostwriter that you're
but
using. If you're using a ghostwriter that is full blown writing an article for you, I kind of frown on that because it's kind of like you're taking credit for someone else's work in a way. Now, when um, like I've used some ghostwriting things to get some blog posts out and stuff like that. But the thing is that I went like, hey, here's essentially a rough draft. Okay. Like, here is all the points. This is how I envision it. And I just need someone who can tie this together, almost like a little bit of writing, more editing, and package it up
yeah,
nicely. I think
yeah,
that's an acceptable form of ghostwriting.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, to me, they're all acceptable. I just think you move away from that process that you were talking to, I mean, if because I can see how, I mean, I love writing,
Yeah.
but I can see if you really hate writing but you have a really great concept.
Hmm.
I think it's reasonable to
Yeah, I guess
say
so.
someone else will be, laying the bricks, so to speak. Like at that point, writing is just the
It
craft.
depends. Yeah, it
Yeah, you're
depends.
the
I think on the
architect. Yeah,
topic. I
yeah.
think it depends on the issue. So let's. I have a couple other questions for you. I mean, we've spent so much time talking, but I think it's been very valuable information for everybody out there. A lot of different topics we've already hit on. So let's try to move through.
You
I
want to
guess
rein
three.
me in?
Yeah, yeah, no, no. But we've got about three more questions just to kind of go through about social purpose stuff like that, and try to move through these a little bit quicker. This stinks. We actually got to try to focus right now. Ugh.
Oh no, you didn't tell me that was part of the
Focus
deal.
is not a specialty. It's Shark Bite Biz. Um, so we talked about what social purpose is, and I am exactly, and I think it's important to point out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're saying social purpose, doing good, stuff like that, you're not necessarily talking about, to the degree of social issues per se. It could be social issues
Could
as
be.
part of the answer, but you're talking anything with the social purpose, as far as, like, for example, my podcast. The social purpose of this is I want to grow personally. Your conversation has so far has already opened my mind, making me think on some things. And I figured I want to take everybody else for the ride. So I know that there's a lot of business owners out there that listen to the show, managers, directors, young executives, that this is having an impact on them. Okay. But it's a totally non political, non social, issue type purpose. So that's what you mean by social purpose. Anything under that roof, correct?
Almost.
Almost. Okay. Yeah. Correct me. I
Almost.
said
So
correct me if I'm wrong.
let me clarify a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm all about your growth,
Mhm.
but that is not social purpose.
Okay.
So by definition, social purpose, Viktor Frankl used this term self-transcendent. So it has to be beyond yourself. You're not doing it for yourself. Your own growth is a noble thing to do, but it's still like self-oriented.
Right.
So social purpose is anything that you do for others or for a societal cause. So this podcast is all about contribution because you're helping entrepreneurs. That's
Yeah,
what, and
I
you're
mean,
helping people with
exactly.
their businesses.
I mean, the way that I phrase it, it makes it sound like, oh, I'm doing it just for me and taking people
No,
along for the
no.
ride. But I mean, the truth is, if it was just for me, you and I would be having a one-on-one conversation that wouldn't be public for the whole world to see.
Right.
This is actually contributing to help others, do their thing.
Right. Yeah. And I think, I mean, that part is social purpose. So that's why I said almost, like just one part wasn't. But you could say, the key concept in the book is job purposing, which is you mess with your job to push the boundaries out so that there's more social purpose to it. So for example, if you just decided, you know what, every third episode I'm going to have someone from a nonprofit to get word out on something, awareness on an issue out there. So now suddenly you're now bringing in a different social purpose, a new social purpose, and you are now doing what the key concept in the book is, which is job purposing.
Okay.
Or even if you said, you know what, like when you might already be doing this actually, like when I hire people on my team, I'm going to deliberately hire, at-risk youth. Or, so now that you're helping with, social equity out there. So, or you could, so there's a million ways to do this to any job. And so including yours.
Right.
This part of your job. I know you do other things as well. So.
Oh, a lot of things. Just launched a coffee brand called Dead House Coffee. There you go.
Did you really? Wow.
Yeah, Dead House Coffee, because we're all zombies in the morning before we drink our lovely coffee. And it transforms you back to a human being.
Wow.
So there you go.
That's fantastic. I love that tagline.
Yeah. Well, it's Dead House Coffee. Get back to life. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So now let's look. We're in that this darn global pandemic just doesn't want to end. Okay, did 2020 change the relationship businesses have with social purpose?
Yeah, it intensified it. And broadened it. So. I mean, I had never been as busy in terms of kind of helping individuals that had nothing to do with social purpose for, the prior 20 years, kind of helping them through it. So like how to bring it to their business. So we've all seen the examples. We've seen, everything from, alcoholic beverage companies saying, oh, wait, we can make sanitizer, or even like the local burrito store saying, well, we can't serve in our restaurant, but we can make the burritos and take them to people that might not get food during this shutdown, or feed healthcare workers, or feed essential workers. And if anybody wants to help us with that,
we've seen some awesome things happen this past year.
It's and those businesses that have done that, they're first of all, they're more likely to survive as a business. So because they found a way to keep adding value. They found a way to kind of keep their doors open, and sure, their finances probably look like really bad. But the other thing is that when we do this, we have more energy. We make fewer mistakes. We get into flow quicker, so that great feeling where time just goes by like a flash, and all of a sudden you realize I just did 6 spreadsheets.
Yeah.
We get into flow. We're also healthier. Like they actually know that we're less stressed. Our cortisol drops. The cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and then the feel good hormones, oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine all go up. So really, doing the social purpose or contributing to others or to a
Right.
societal cause through work is the most natural thing for us to do. Like we are biologically inclined
Right.
to do that, and
Right.
we benefit from it.
That's amazing. Hey, this has been an incredible conversation. So I've got to ask you 2 things real quick. One, how can people digitally, please, everybody out there, I am saying digitally, how can people digitally stalk you? And number 2 is where can they find your book?
Yes. So you can digitally stalk me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. My name, anything close to my name brings it up. But
We'll have the
to
links
get
down
the
in the
direct
description.
link, oh, okay, great. And
Yep.
then the book is sold everywhere that books are sold.
Yep.
But and you can even ask your library for it, but pull it, get it out of your library. But for information on the book, go to dogoodatwork.com, and you'll find the links to all the bookstores and information on the book. So dogoodatwork.com.
And we'll throw a direct link down in the description, whether on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere you're watching or listening this show. Look down below. You'll see the Do Good at Work link. We'll just link right to Amazon. Make it easy for people just to do those one-click orders for you. Hey, Bea, thank you so much for coming on. This has
You're
been
welcome.
like a deep, fun discussion.
I loved it, David. And I need your coffee. Where do I get it?
Deadhousecoffee.com.
All right. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to order some
That
right
link will
now.
also be in the description as well, too. So
Thanks,
thank you.
David.
No problem. Thank you. And yeah, this has been fun. I'd love to get you back after the pandemic ends, later this year, next year, whenever it is. And we'll talk some more about how things have changed and how businesses and people can do good at work in that current time frame.
Count me in.
Perfect. Thank you. Cheers.
Wow, that was an awesome chat with Bea, right? First, you all know the routine. If you found this interview helpful, if it sparked those warm and fuzzies, do me a favor. Hit the like button, smash that subscribe button, or if you're on an audio podcast, it probably says follow. Doesn't matter where you're at, hit that button. Help us grow. We're a community, like-minded individuals that want to grow personally, professionally, want to grow our business. And, and the more we have, the stronger we are. Okay, so definitely help us out, subscribe. But if you really want to do us a solid, please share this video out, get it on Twitter, get it on Facebook, on LinkedIn, wherever you go to share your content, even your company's Yammer feed. But definitely put it out there, okay? I would love nothing more than to see Bea Boccalandro and David Strausser with Shark Bite Biz trending. Now let's get back to our rock star guest Bea. I feel so connected to her. We both have had such a similar path. I mean, different countries, different stories, but yet so similar. For me, being born in a place that I just didn't feel like I belonged and needed to be part of something bigger and better. I mean, that had me moving to Tijuana, Mexico when I was 18. And since then, I lived San Diego, Sacramento, Peru, Los Angeles. Now we're back outside of Philadelphia. It's kind of the path that life took me on. I went for the ride of life. And the episode before this one, you may remember the discussion that we had with Kirk Barnes about doing that non-linear path. Bea and myself, we both have that in common. We do not have those linear paths. And while we are both from some place, we just really don't feel that way. You know, it was also really good to hear once again that we have yet another executive, another, very powerful woman coming on this show, essentially saying that one of the best things that she ever did was to quit her job. It may sound drastic, but it is true. Sometimes your job is the hindrance of, that's keeping you from feeling completed. Sometimes your job is what gives you, that feeling, and it really prohibits you. And it wasn't Bea's case, and she so clearly needed to move on because in Bea's case, she's clearly needed to move on because now she fulfills her social purpose by showing others how to fill their social purpose. Overall, I just really love talking with Bea. It was an amazing conversation, and I think the last point that she made was probably the most important, okay? And that was social purpose isn't for your own growth. Social purpose has to be a societal cause, not self-fulfillment. So this podcast, it is helping others grow, and that is a social purpose, even if I am riding off the coattails of that success. But still, you get the point. Bea's book, Do Good at Work. We're going to have the link in Amazon down below. Make sure you check it out. It's a good read. She has her little characters in there that she drew as she was telling us. And the question of the day, what's your feeling on ghostwriting? We discussed that a little bit during the interview. I'd love to have your take on it. Do you agree, disagree? Where do you think those limits should be? Leave a comment down on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. And remember, if you want to be on the show, okay, shoot an email. We got a new email address for you. interviews@sharkbitebiz.com. Once again, interviews@sharkbitebiz.com. And then just 2 quick final shout outs. 1, make sure you join the channel. Hit that join button, become a baby shark. It is $3 a month. But if you want something more for your money, no problem. We got you covered there as well, too. Head over to deadhousecoffee.com. That's deadhousecoffee.com. Use the code SHARK. You'll get 20% off of all your freshly roasted coffee orders. And all those proceeds go 100% to helping us build a bigger and better podcast for you all. So you all know the routine by now. I'm David Strausser. This is Shark Bite Biz. We'll see you all next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Shark Bite Biz. We hope you got some insightful info from this podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us through your favorite podcast app and visit us on the web at www.sharkbitebiz.com. How has business changed for you in the 20s? Email us at podcast@sharkbitebiz.com so you can join us and share your story.